work. You're welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is still Trim City on Unilag Radio 103.1 FM. Like I mentioned before that break, that we have someone in the studio. We have a guest here in the studio, and today we are talking genetics, analyzing the issues surrounding genetics. You know, this genetics issue, first of all, I'd like to say that it's something that we usually don't talk about, except we want to fill a form, or except we are getting close to getting married. Then we remember, oh, I think we need to go and check all of these things. So these are some of the issues that we don't talk about. But today on the show, we want to really talk about these issues. So I'll open the phone lines at 10:30 for calls. So if you have questions at any point, feel free to call in and I'll be here to take your question. So my guest is an associate professor, Department of Cell Biology and Genetics, University of Lagos, Akoka. On Dream City today, I have Dr. Kelechi Njoku. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Okay, it's good to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so we're going to start from the basic question, which is defining what genes. What are genes? You know, how are they formed? How are they gotten?
Okay. Genes are segments in DNA that carry information for particular characters or features that individuals have. So, for instance, you have maybe a gene that will carry information or maybe the height, the body size, maybe the skin color, the complexion, the hair texture, and other things. So for every information, every character, every trait that we have, there's always a gene that is responsible for it. So we call it technically a section of the DNA that is responsible for a particular function, a particular character in an individual.
Okay. Now, for some of us, like I said earlier, we usually don't know these things. We don't talk about these things. We don't even know our blood groups or genotype till it is required of us. So, what time or age do you think we should be armed with this information?
As soon as possible. You can get this information even as a baby in the womb.
Yeah. A baby in the womb.
What do I mean? There may be complications or there may be issues that people want to know one or two other things. Information can be extracted from the baby, or the tissues can be extracted from the baby and analyzed, and that analysis will be able to give us what particular genetic makeup that baby is supposed to have. Let's take an instance. Let's take this instance that the baby, you don't know whether the baby is a male or a female. It's already in the womb. You can get what we call amniotic fluid, analyze it, and see what type of chromosome that the baby has, whether it is having the male chromosome or whether it's having the female chromosome.
Okay, now children who are born with special needs, maybe some form of disability or the other, do you think this has anything to do with genetics?
Some of them may be genetic, some of them may be inborn error.
Okay.
Now, in genetics, it means that they inherited such factors from their parents. Depending on the kind of factor that they inherited. We talk about factors as two possible types of factors. There are factors we call the recessive factors, which need to be in double dose before they will be expressed. And there are factors we call the dominant factors, which will be expressed or which will be shown, which will manifest wherever they are present. Now, there are also what we call inborn errors that come up during formation. This one, the mother or the father maybe do not have such. But because the child has been exposed to a particular thing during formation, such child may come out with that error, and maybe you see that the other children and even the parents don't have the possibility of getting that threat expressed. So, but the child, because of the time of formation, then something happened, was exposed to a particular thing, and then maybe something happened that's information on how the things are supposed to have been formed.
So it's both ways. It could either be genetics, or it could either be something else that happened.
Wow. In genetics, it means that it is inherited.
Okay.
It's inherited. It is what either the parents have been having, what we can say, waiting for the time for it to explode, like the time bomb. Maybe the parents may have it without expressing it, or the parents are already expressing it, or when the child is being formed. As the child is being formed, and maybe there's one or two other things that happened, and such child will have it without the parents having such thing. So it means that they cannot pass it on to their generation or next generations. But if it is a genetic issue that has been there, it can be passed on to the next generation. There are some things that we have that we may not pass on to our children, and there are some things that we have that we did not even get from our parents. So such are the things that I'm trying to describe. Maybe formation, depending on the level of formation, even after the child has been born, there may be one or two other things that the child can be exposed to that can make the child have one or two malformations.
Okay. Now, a lot of us are used to, we hear AA, we hear AS, AAS, SS, we hear these things, but we really cannot differentiate them. We really cannot tell what's the difference between AS genotype and AA genotype and the like. So, what differentiates these things? Can you throw some light on the various genotypes?
Again, we look at this, the human hemoglobin, where we are looking, the genotype of the human hemoglobin is what we are describing now. Ordinary is supposed to be an AA, but mutation occurred, it changed to AS. Now, the SS came up when we now have interaction between AS and AS. If you have interaction between AS and AS, there is probability that SS will come out. So if there is no interaction between AS and AS, you may not have that probability, except maybe there is also like a misinformation, like I mentioned before, maybe mutation that has occurred somewhere. So some of these things, you may find out that some of these things are just there. But the AA genotype, or the person that has AA hemoglobin, is called the normal. You have AS called the carrier, and you have the SS called the sufferer. The AA person does not have anemia. The blood type is normal. The AS person, in genetics we say maybe heterozygous advantage. Heterozygous advantage is because it has something that is like being advantageous to two different things. The AA person is like more of prone to malaria. The AS person is not as prone to malaria as the AS, as the AA.
So it's actually true.
Yes. Now, the SS person is not prone to malaria, but is prone to anemia. The AS is not prone to anemia and is not prone to malaria. So maybe, I don't know. But if you go back a little down, you realize that we have this problem of SS in these areas that are endemic to malaria. The Africa, the Saudi Arabia has the highest percentage of SS or sickle cell because of the malaria. And there was this theory that stated that it was like a nature trying to adapt to overcome the problem of malaria. So nature was trying to overcome the problem of malaria. There was a theory that stated that, and because of that, in trying to adapt, there was mutation that changed the blood from AA to AS, such that such people will not be prone to malaria. But now, having interaction between AS is now what has led to the SS we are looking at, which is the set now that has anemia because of the hemoglobin type that they have.
Okay, now let's talk about the popular one. I know a lot of my listeners are waiting for me to get there. I'm here now, don't worry. So a lot of us say, oh, love is blind, and that's why you see a lot of AS people still coming together that, okay, they want to get married, they want to settle. Please, what are the risks involved when an AS couple decide to get married?
The risk by paper says 25% having SS by paper. 25% having normal and 50% having carriers. But in practice, you may have all your children being SS.
Wow.
You may have all your children
wow.
being AA. You may have all your children being AS. Because there are some other contributory factors. Let's look at this issue. A lady or a woman, for instance, produces an egg once in 28 days or 30 days, but she may not know whether the egg is S egg or A egg. Being an AS, that means this egg can be S or this egg can be A. But the one you are presenting this month is what you don't know whether it is SS or S egg or an A egg.
And there's no study to tell us that, okay, there's a way you can find out as a lady that, okay, to find out if this one is going to be S or...
For now, I don't have information whether we can probe. Remember, these eggs are like in a bag. You call the ovary, and a month you have a blind release. So this blind release is what I'm trying to say, that you don't know whether it is an S egg or an A egg. Now during fertilization, you also have a blind release of the sperm cells. The man also has some of the sperm cells as S, some as A. Any of them can get hooked to the egg. If the S egg is produced and the sperm that is hooking to that or fertilizing it is the one that has S, then in for SS child. If it is the S egg and the sperm that is coming is the A sperm, you are in for AS child. And if it is an A egg and the sperm is S egg, S sperm is AS child also. But if it is an A egg and an A sperm, you are going to have AA child. That's why I said you can have 100% AA, you can have 100% AS, you can have 100% SS, depending on the things that surround the fertilization. What are the things available and what are the things that have contributed to that? So, for me, love is blind. We should be very cautious of that because of so many things. Like what I try to say now, as a lady, you don't know the egg you're presenting. And we cannot stop halfway. Maybe when we are in the business of producing a child, you cannot stop halfway. Oh, let's check. Let's take out all the sperm cells and see which one is S and which one is egg. Internal fertilization. Even in vitro fertilization, that's test tube babies, where you get the eggs and you get the sperm to fertilize. Technology has not so much been developed to start looking at those things to say, oh, we can do it. Do we have it? Even in Nigeria, can we screen for the sperm and know whether it is an S sperm and screen for the egg to know whether it is an S egg before we allow them to be inside the test tube or before we do the in vitro fertilization? And if we can do it, how many of us that are saying love is blind can afford to do it? So we have to be very careful. Sometimes let's open our eyes when we are still experiencing love.
Okay, I'll go for this quick break, and when we come back, I'll open the phone lines for people to call in should you have questions. So I'll go for this quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with our interview with Dr. Kelechi Njoku. Stick around, I'll be back.
Purchase airtime and data. Make transfers to any bank in Nigeria. Payments and make POS payments. Create a wallet account and perform other self-service options like PIN and password reset and temporary blockage of your account. Star 966 hash is fast, easy, and convenient. And more importantly, it can be used on any phone type as it requires no data. Dial star 966 hash to get started now. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Alright, we're going back. It's still Dream City here on Unilag Radio 103.1 FM, and we have been talking to Dr. Kelechi Njoku on the topic analyzing the issues surrounding genetics. The phone lines are open. Should you have questions, please feel free to call in, ask your questions, or if you want to make comments or you want to shout out to him, feel free to call 081 3303 8749, or you can call 080 209 33638. I'll take the numbers again: 081 3303 8749, or you can call 080 209 33638. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the show. What's your name?
Good morning. My name is John.
John. John, where are you calling me from?
I'm calling you from Lagos.
Okay.
Java to present.
Alright, do you have questions for my guest?
Yes, Dr. Kelechi, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. John.
Yes, please, I have a question. My question is, there is this new thing we got to hear about, the genotype SC. I remember during the Big Brother house last year, Big Brother program last year, one of the housemates said he was SC, but he wasn't specifically type that, like the SS. Can you please throw light on that?
Okay, alright. He'll take your question now. Thank you for calling, John. Okay, so John wants to know that there's a recent genotype trending. It's been trending for a while now. I also have that as part of my questions. SCAC. Can you tell us about it? Because it seems strange. A lot of us are used to AA, SS, and AS. So which one is now SC and AC?
There are so many forms of sickle cell genotypes, but the most common is the SS. That's the S hemoglobin.
Okay.
We also have others. We have the SC, which is the C. It's also a form of change. But if we go to a little analysis of how this change has happened, we will talk about the gene. And we said that the gene is a sequence, a section of the DNA that is responsible for a particular character. So this section now that is responsible for hemoglobin, there was a change. We call it point mutation. So what happened is that the kind of change that brought C is different from the kind of change that brought S. But what has happened is that these changes, C and S, are leading to anemia, though the C is not as severe as S, and it's not as common as S. That's why it's like it's not known.
Is it a recent?
It's not a recent thing. It has been there. There are cases that you see that they say 1 in 25,000, 1 in 100,000. Some doctors will serve their period without having such in their clinic. So it's not a recent thing. It has been there. But the rate of occurrence, the frequency of occurrence, is not as what we have in the S.
Common ones.
Yes, the S is the most common, and then more severe than the C. But it has been there. And since it is not as common as as S, so it means that if very few people have it, very few people are also likely going to transfer that to their offspring.
Yeah, true.
So the rate of transfer or the frequency of transfer of S is going to be higher than that of C because S is more common than C. The only difference is that the frequency, the rate of occurrence, but it has been there. And the other thing is that it's not as severe. The symptoms or the effects are not as severe as what we have. So if we also have SC, we can also have an SC group. That means I'm S and you are C, and I get married to you. Our child is likely going to have SC. It's not SS, it's not CC, but SC.
Okay, so we know that for those who have SS cannot get married, AS cannot get married. So what happens with SC and AC? What is their own? Who can get married? Who cannot get married?
Probability. If I'm SC, you are SC. We also have 25, 50, and 25% chances. 25 normal AA, 25, 50 SC, and 50 maybe 25 CC, or 25 AA, 50 SC, 25 that.
Okay.
So it's the same probability, because that's what we call autosomal recessive inheritance. This type of inheritance is not attached to the sex cells. They're attached to the cells that are chromosomes that are responsible for other things apart from our gender. So fortunately or coincidentally, this type of inheritance is like that. So first, it is recessive. It needs a double dose. Second, it is not sex bound. So since it's not sex bound, anybody can have it. So in this type of inheritance, it's usually expressed in common 1:2:1.
Okay. Now, a lot of times we hear people say that people who have who have SS, they usually don't live long. Is SS a death sentence?
It's not a death sentence, but the problems that are close to it, or problems that come with it, many people may not have either the knowledge to manage it or the things to manage it. At a particular time, we say that maybe the last option for managing SS is having bone marrow transplant. And bone marrow transplant is not something you can do. But there are some other things that we can use to manage SS. For one of the things that can trigger or make the crisis of anemia to be higher is dehydration. So taking enough water, maybe having fluid and having blood transfusion, maintaining rest, and staying away from some of those things that can trigger the crisis can help you maybe have a little crisis-free SS. It's not that because you have SS, so you must die within a particular. That has been a myth that sometimes you don't get a particular age, but there are some people who have been SS, who have grown up to 60 years and are still living. Some are SS and they're giving birth. And you may be surprised that either SS and the husband is AA, they will not have any SS child. They will at most have AS. So it's not like it's a death sentence, but the affordability of the management may be what people are now looking at. And then the knowledge. There are some things that have been termed as maybe a curse from gods, that you inherited a curse from the gods, and so these are supposed to be done. This maybe you are this, you are this, you are this, without looking at the proper medical or some other things, looking at the proper implications of what has happened. For instance, I'm an AS. I grew up to be told that I had a lot of siblings that died. So I just realized possibly all those siblings that died could have been SS.
So it now depends
Now,
on
in
how
the
you're able
village,
to manage it.
yes, in the village where I grew up, who knew? Maybe it was the cause. Maybe you did not do this, or you did not do this, you did not do this. And even when you have all those crises, what could have happened? So it could be some of such things that will make people, when you have SS, you will die. But if you have proper management, you see the person living.
So it has to do with your lifestyle choices.
Yes.
Healthy living and all that.
From from the parents, managing the child, and then the child realizing what should be done and what should not be done. In 2012, I had students that went with me to Calabar, and they started running. One of them ran away. And I said, why? He said, sir, you know my condition. I'm not expected to be exposed to this. And the student is still alive today. Because she has realized what should be done and what should not be done.
Exactly. Interesting. 08133038749 08020933638. Should you have questions, feel free to call, and we'll be here to take your questions or comments. Or if you know Professor, if you know Dr. Kelechi, you want to shout out to him, feel free to do so. Because when I posted the article on my WhatsApp status, I had about 2-3 persons come. I know Dr. Kelechi, I know him. He was my lecturer. I was my teacher. So I'm going to open the phone line to all of that. You can call in and do all of that. Now, to what extent should genetics shape our decisions and future?
Well, it can go to a large extent, depending on what we want to do. Genetics, science of the genes, knowing what the gene is and what the gene can be used for. We can use it as human beings to do some things. You can manipulate the genes to get what you want. Term, genetic engineering. You can manipulate it to get what you want. This gene is responsible for this, but I don't want this. I want this. Can I alter it? That's in engineering. So it depends on what you want to achieve. Some people will say that some of the things that we are having could be escape of some genetic manipulations. That may be why some of them are difficult to be controlled. I overheard somebody saying that COVID-19 possibly was an escape of genetic manipulation, and so the people cannot control it again. So it depends on what you want to achieve. If it is in marriage, it depends on what. If it is in anything, you can, for instance, manipulate a gene that will make the production of milk in cow, so that the cow can produce more milk. The yield will increase. So it depends on.
So you can tweak.
Yes, it can be applied to almost everything in medicine, in agriculture, in even cleaning up of the environment. You can apply the knowledge of your genetics to cleaning up the polluted environment.
Okay, away from genotypes, let's talk about blood groups. We have A, we have B, we have AB, and we have O. So, and sometimes when it comes to donating blood, the various blood groups and all of that, there's a role they play. They'll tell you, you can't donate to this, you can't donate to that. So please explain all of those things, especially as it relates to donating blood and in cases of emergencies.
What happens is that the ones we know here mostly are the ABO blood groups. So we mostly know 4. But there are many other blood groups. There are almost over 25 different types of blood groups. So, but what we have here, mostly 4: the A, the B, the AB, and the O.
Okay.
The A, they have antigen. The A has antigen A. The B has antigen B. And the AB has both antigens. And the O does not have any of the antigens. That's what technically your lab scientist or your medical scientist tests when you go for blood group. He wants to see the type of antigen that you have. So if he tests and you don't have any of the antigens, say you are O. If he tests you have both antigens, you say you are AB. You have only A. You are A, and you have only B. You are AB. So, but the thing now is that can I say that the way God has created us, He has given us what we call these antigens, and He has also given us what we call the antibodies. The antigens are expected to elicit corresponding antibodies. So if I now have an antibody A in my system. Antibody A. That means it's like well targeted to attack antigen A. If I have antibody B, it's targeted to attack antigen B. So it means that if I have a blood transfusion from antigen that my antibody is going to attack, I'm going to have crisis.
Yeah.
So if I have now, I'm supposed to have O, and O does not have antigen. So if I'm giving you O, there's nothing your antibody is going to attack. But if I now have AB, I have both antigens, and you have antibody A in my system, or you have antibody B in your system, you are likely going to have that reaction. So such are the decisions that, or such form the opinion when there is decision who gives blood and who does not give blood.
And this is not family related, so it doesn't mean that if anybody in my family can donate blood to me.
Anybody, if the person in your family has the same or corresponding blood as you have, if you are O plus.
So it's not by family, so it means that my sister may not have the same corresponding blood as I have.
Yes, because now again, in the inheritance of characters, in genetics, we say that characters or the genes, what we call them the alleles, usually occur in twos. Okay. So we have possibly AB. Now that if your sister is having AB, it's likely that maybe mom is A and dad is B, and two of them come together. Now, if mom is AA, and dad is BO, dad has possibility of giving B or O. Mom has possibility of giving only A.
So it's not by family.
So in that situation now, you now see that you may be having A from your mom and having O from your dad. Your sister is having A from your mom and having B from your dad. So you now become AO. So you say you are A positive because the O is like recessive. So you are now A. And then your sister that has inherited both dominant characters, the A and the B, will now become AB.
Do we have universal donors?
The universal donors have been classified as those that don't have the antigens in them, the O.
Okay, so they can give to anybody.
Yes, the O. Now you see, they will also call universal recipients.
Yeah.
Those that don't have the antibodies in them, so they can take from anybody. So you can give, but you cannot, because the O does not have the antibody, but does not have the antigen, but that person has the antibody. So you also be careful of what is coming in, because the antibody is like the soldier. So the AB has the antigen, but does not have the antibody. So there's no soldier.
Okay.
There's no soldier.
Maybe is already rolling our eyes in the studio like all this antibody antigen is sounding confusing, but anyways we'll get
so it's like you have something and you have a guard. The guard is like the antibody. So the antibody in immune system is to guard us. So like what the soldiers do.
Yeah. So
if you are now entering where there is no soldier, you can move freely. If you are entering where the soldier is already waiting for you, and the soldier has that, this is the person I'm looking for. So it means that as you are entering, the soldier will attack you.
Okay, let's go for this quick break. When we come back, we'll continue. Stick around. Just to continue shortly. Maybe, like really, I just told you something.
This has been one of the shows that I did not understand. I'm just here. I'm existing currently.
So what do I do?
Yeah, that's serious.
I've never liked sciences, so I do not even care. When I saw the heading, I was like, I knew nothing was going to enter my head, but at least we shall know AA, we know AC, we know AS, we move.
Easy and convenient, and more importantly, it can be used on any phone type as it requires no data. Dial *966# to get started now. Zenith Bank, in your
it's still Dream City here on Ulag Radio 103.1 FM, and we have been analyzing the issues surrounding genetics with Dr. Kelechi Njoku, and we've been looking at so many issues from genotype to blood group, and now I want us to talk about DNA. I know that DNA has been trending for the past many weeks now. A lot of people have been talking about that issue. People are going to run DNA tests and all of that. But the thing is, a lot of people that are talking about this issue really do not know what DNA is. So the question is, what is DNA?
Okay. The oxyribonucleic acid.
Exactly, I could not pronounce that.
Oxyribonucleic acid.
Okay.
So, it's like the chemical database that you have in our system. Just like we have database, the chemical database that we have in our system. It is in this long stretch that you have at different segments, different genes. So you have a DNA, which I call the chemical database, and it contains information that will enable us be this or not to be that. So the chemicals, the DNA contains what we call the bases, the nucleotide bases or the nucleotides. We would have heard of one of them is we call it adenine. We have guanine, we have cytosine, and we have thymine. 4 of them. So, and what they do is that the way they are arranged determines what comes out. 3 of them, when 3 come together, they form what we call amino acid. When the amino acids come together, they form what we call the protein. And the protein is what we see. Your skin color or your skin texture is as a result of the kind of protein you have. So it means that it is the DNA which contains those nucleotides and the arrangement of the nucleotide that will make you be what you are or what you are not. So if I have, for instance, ATT, and you also have these 4 that I mentioned, everybody will have it. But the way they are arranged may be different from one point or the other.
Yeah.
So now, the DNA test, trying to use it. Now in Nigeria, what is trending is trying to use it to identify who is who.
Exactly.
Forensic DNA. Now, what do we do here? There's a genome. The sequence is like writing a long letter, a long stretch of thing about a particular person. So each person has such stretch, but there could be a point that is unique to you. That's unique to that person. So I may have, as an individual, as a human being, there will be points where we will match. Our sequence will be the same. But my uniqueness depends on that point where it is only to me that it is not to you. So in using it to identify now whether
Who was the child?
the child that I've been carrying for the past 4 years is my child or not, most of the things that the mother gives, we call it maternal inheritance, it's only the mother that gives it. So it's noted that the child is going to inherit that from the mother.
So where
Because
does the
we
father
don't
come
usually argue who is the owner of the mother.
Yeah, who
Maybe
is the
very
mother of
soon
the
we
child?
may start arguing who is the owner of the mother. Now that we are talking about surrogate mothers, we may now know whether she's actually a surrogate mother or the biological mother.
So where does the father come
Now, what we now do is that we now put the sequence of the father, the child, the suspected fathers, and the child, and see whose sequence that of the child matches.
Okay.
So it could come as a band. So if, for instance, all my bands, I have 99.9% similarity with you, that means we are biologically related. But if I have 0% similarity treaty with you,
That means there's a
we are
problem.
not biologically
But sir,
related.
quickly, is it possible for a DNA test to be wrong? What are the conditions
Of course, everything can be possible.
for it to be wrong?
Yes, the interpreter,
Oh,
the management, even the machine, the machine you are using to run it. I read something that somebody got macheted within hours because he was told that he was HIV positive. So after some time, they came back to tell him that, sorry, you are not HIV positive.
Like
We
really?
made a mistake. And you saw the guy that could not take a cup from the bedside jump up.
So okay, now these are so many issues, but there's one other particular one I want you to quickly touch on. What is resource factor?
Resource.
Yes.
Resource is one of those things that we find in our blood group. If you have done your blood group test, you see plus or minus. Maybe I ask Comfort, what's your blood group?
Well, I think it is plus, I guess.
So it's when you do your blood group analysis, that plus or minus is the resource factor. Minus means that you don't have the factor, plus means that you have the factor.
Okay, and see, it's looking like we're going to have a part 2 of this topic because it's a lot to take in at once. But thank you so much, Dr. Kelechi, for coming on the show today. I had a good time talking to you, learning, although those big science words are somehow. But thank you so much, sir.
I'm sorry for using science words.
It is what it is.
The next time I will try to use mascom words. So I was trying as much as possible to calm down
Yes.
to
Yes.
that, but
Thank you so much.
very
Thank
sorry.
you so much.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank
So our listeners at home, thank you so much for being part of the show. To our quiz winners, you get your airtime as soon as possible. Shout out to every one of you. Do have a beautiful weekend. Until I come your way, same time, same station, next week Saturday. Do have a beautiful and a blessed week. Bye. Yeah, thank you so much. No, don't stand up here though. I can't be. I'm not done. Effectual.
Good morning, ma'am.
Like really?
You see?
Nail down. Really?
Eh, who-
Look at the time you guys came in. Did she not?
Really? I came in early now.
Sorry. Should we start talking?
We apologize.
Should we start talking? Yes, sir. Please.
Don't embrace me in Marata.
I don't understand what you want to answer. You started it.